Well, here we are. It's I believe August 31st today. It's pretty much nearing the end of the growing season, and as you can tell, these beans right about waist, a little higher than waist high, and we just had an unbelievable growth on all these food plots here at home, right behind the house in our backyard here. The corn looks great. The beans look probably like some of the best beans I've ever grown. It's just looking to be like a great winter food source for the deer. You can see these beans are just loaded with pods. And this area and that corn and the corn up there was put on all the same day. But then that strip of beans, there's like a triangle of beans right there that all used to be lawn, and we sprayed it off, and that was the area that we disced up, lightly disced up, and I hand drilled beans in between the slits in the ground that the disc made, and kind of just packed it all down. And that's where this corn, I planted a little bit of corn down here that day too. But yeah, these beans look absolutely amazing. As you can tell, right about waist high, maybe a little hair over waist high. Pretty much the whole plot looks like this, except along the edge of the woods there. It's a little bit shorter, but that's kind of to be expected because of the shade. But yeah, this is just some unbelievable soybeans. It's pretty amazing that, I mean, we didn't have to put any fertilizer on this plot because we did a soil sample, I believe it would have been last spring, and this plot was pretty high in potassium, and remember it was like extremely high in phosphorus. I guess the beans like the potassium and corn needs more phosphorus or something like that. But maybe next year we'll throw a little bit fertilizer in here because I'm sure all this growth is going to suck up something, but we'll add a little bit of fertilizer next year. But over at the farm, we got to add a lot of fertilizer because our ground out there is really low in potassium and phosphorus. So that's why we add a lot out there. And this year we got away without putting anything here, and it turned into some really nice crops. So these right here, these are the no-till beans that we just broadcasted right into all the standing winter rye and crushed it all down and sprayed it. I never actually re-sprayed. You can see there's a few grassy weeds in there, some stuff along the edge here, but overall there really isn't hardly any weeds in this food plot, considering the only spraying was the day we planted. You can tell these beans are a lot shorter, but that's just because of how shady it is here, and they're looking like they're going to start dropping and turning yellow pretty soon here. These ones do, at least. You can see this plot, if you remember from an earlier video, kind of wraps around all these trees and heads way down that way. I'll take you over on this side. The best looking beans in this plot are right here because they get full sun, and you can see these ones are almost waist high, just like the other field was, considering, you know, they got more sun, and these ones are actually starting to dry up a little bit. It's a little drier ground right here. But yeah, looks like got plenty of pods on there. They're all going to mature. These are drying up. Like I said, it's pretty dry soil here, and it's amazing how good these beans do in shade. Corn and brassicas and a lot of, I guess, beans and clover are the best two things you can plant, including winter rye. Beans, clover, winter rye are the best things you can plant in shady food plots. Like this area, that's facing northwest, so this only gets a little bit of afternoon sunlight. That's it. The whole morning this is all shaded over here, and even then they're almost knee high. So you can see these beans got quite a few pods on them for considering how short they are. So hopefully this little strip is usually where the deer kind of come through, so these will be the first ones they kind of consume. These will probably be gone early December, that's my guess. But that's all right. We got all those other beans and corn way out here. I'll take you over to some other areas next. So like I said, this little area used to be lawn. These are the ones that I just said we used the disc, lightly scratched up the ground and threw the seed in. These ones are almost as tall as the ones down there. You can almost see a defined line right there. The darker ones are the ones in the garden. That's even lower, and that ground down there just really holds the moisture really well. But overall, these ones turned out really good. They were planted, like I said, about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks after those ones, and they almost caught up in size. Just loaded with pods, so it's really looking good. I'll take you over to that corn first. All right, so here we are. I got two little patches of corn, this one and the one down there in the garden. This is the patch of corn that looked better from the start. It was taller, darker green and was ahead the whole year, and even though it was planted the same day, this stuff just really took off, probably because it's more sunlight here, and this is only the second year we've had anything here, so maybe that's a reason why too. But this stuff really produced well. I could have probably put it in a little thicker than what I did. I think next year I'm going to double plant all the corn, because our corn planter is 38 inches, and a lot of the corn I did this year, I would plant a 38-inch row, and then I'd move over and then plant like a tight 15 to 20 inch row, and then there'd be another 38-inch row, and then I'd do the same thing, 15, 20-inch row, 38-inch row, 15-inch row, 38-inch row. Next year, I'm just going to double plant everything. You'll see down there in the garden, I double planted everything, and you get a lot more volume, or a lot more crops in the field, and it's going to probably result in a higher yield that way. Even though the thinner you plant, like in this field, you end up with a lot bigger cobs. I mean, there's some monster cobs in here. You can see this stuff right here is probably close to 10 feet tall on the top of the tassels here. This plant right here even has 2 good-sized ears on it. A lot of these, like I said, are just ginormous. This one's got 2 ears on it as well. This one right here's got 2. So you can see the spacing between the plants, super thin. It could have been planted a little thicker, especially when you get in here. Like, this is what I was saying. Here's a 38-inch row. Here's a tight row. 38-inch row. Another tight row. So next year I'm probably going to just double plant everything, because you can see even when the corn's planted super thick like this, I mean, it's going to produce. This one's got 2 cobs on it right here. This one's got, well, there's 2 plants right here. So yeah, this stuff, as you can tell, is really drying down fast, especially up here in this corner. This is like a little higher. Down there you can see it's a little greener yet, but this whole field is going to be dried out pretty soon. They're already hanging down, you can tell. You can see completely dried out already. Maybe not completely dried out, but it's looking really good. On this side, I'm still in the same plot. Like I said, it's a little greener here, but it's all going to be dried down pretty fast. This plant right here actually has 3 on it, but this one, yeah, it grew a little bit of something there, yeah. Can't believe that. This is this one's got 3 on it too, but this one didn't turn into anything. But this is probably some of the best corn I've ever grown. Definitely the best looking stuff this year, I think. Some of these ears on the plant here are right around 6 feet on the plants. So this is some pretty amazing stuff. This one's a little bit lower. But yeah, this is some great looking corn. See, I think this is probably the biggest one. I was watching this one grow throughout the season when I was walking through here. This is probably the biggest one in here. I'm probably going to pick this in a little bit once it dries down, just to save this monster cob. I don't know if you can see that, but that's my arm. Makes it almost to my elbow. And there's probably over 20 kernels around down there. You can see that thing is just ginormous. I'm actually just going to pick this one right now. It seems like it's really well dried down. So here we go. You can see here it is. I just counted. There's right around 48 to almost 50 up and down, and then around there's 22. So that's just a ginormous, one of the biggest cobs in here. Yeah. I'll take you down to the wetter cornfield. You can see this corn is a little greener yet. It hasn't quite dried down. Like I said, this field's a little bit lower, so that's probably why this corn. Plus, like I said, this stuff was behind the other corn spot from day one. It just didn't come up as fast. Never really, it was always like a couple inches to maybe even a foot or 2 behind in height. And you can see these cobs down here are not nearly as big. And this field I got planted thicker. I basically double planted this. You can see tight row, another tight row, another tight row. So it's all pretty thick. And overall it did produce pretty well, but this field's starting to get some coon damage in it. But it seems like the coons have kind of stayed out of here ever since this stuff is starting to dry down better, as you can tell. But yeah, there was definitely some coons down here, but they really didn't get too much of it. Right here it's kind of funny. Here's a volunteer soybean plant, because I had soybeans on this end last year. Look at that. How weird that looks when it's growing with the corn. It's just so empty. There's like no leaves on it. But yeah, this spot looks like it'll give the deer a decent amount of corn too. And you'll see when I come all the way over here by the woods, the corn is a lot smaller on this end, just simply due because of the shade. But it did still produce. I mean, there's little cobs on here, so there'll be some food over here on this end, even though the corn is barely 6 foot tall. Yeah, over here is just kind of a waste. But yeah, it's looking like it's gonna be just a mecca winter food source. I mean, we had a lot of food here last year, and this year we probably got double the food. We got more beans than we had last year, and we have all this corn. You see the road is right there. That's why I wanted to put the corn on this end to kind of help screen it off better, even though we got all these good pine trees screening it off from the road. But yeah, like in February and January, there was a lot of deer in this, does mainly, in this plot during daylight. So having the corn here will definitely help screen it off even better. So yeah, one more spot we gotta take you to, and that'll be it. All right, so this right here is the last spot I have into beans here in our backyard. This is the spot right between the tree rows. We came in here, sprayed it off, threw the seeds right in the ground, and tilled the seeds right in. This was in that same video where I had, I think it was probably the last video, it was that long ago already, but it was a video where we had 3 different ways to plant soybeans: by tilling, no-till, and then we did the disc beans where we just drilled it in between the slits in the ground. So this stuff is really drying out faster than the other ones because this is pretty dry here, unlike some of the other spots. And these beans are pretty yellow already, and we put these ones in too thick, but I guess beans, no matter how thick you have them, the yield doesn't really fluctuate that much, unlike corn. So right here's one plant in a pretty thick spot in the plot. There's thicker and thinner spots, but this is a pretty thick spot right here. You can see, looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe, yeah, 5 pods on that one. Pull out this one might have a few more. Yeah, it's got a few more, but as I was saying, like if this was thinner, these plants in here would be bigger with more pods, but in all reality, it's gonna be about the same amount of pods. So, and you can see this plant here on the edge is just proof. You can see this little stubby plant. It's got a lot bigger stem, and he's just filled up with pods. And you look in here where they're pretty thin. The stems on the plants are really narrow, and they don't have many pods. But yeah, that's gonna about wrap up this one. Like I said, these ones are really drying down. I imagine in the next month, all the beans are gonna be yellow. And pretty much the growing season is over. It all turned out really nicely. I will be doing one more update on all the beans and corn at the farm where we have, you know, the other property where we plant all the food plots. That one will probably be coming out within the week. I want to get that one out soon too. Hopefully we can get some drone footage of that, but I'm not 100% sure that'll be in that video. But yeah, look forward to that, and hunting season's just right around the corner. So I got a lot of brassica food plot videos on the way too. It's just I didn't get any of my brassicas planted until August, and I like to include results. So you'll see those coming out within September sometime as well. So stick around and keep checking back. I'll be a lot more active here in the next month by posting videos. So yeah, hopefully more content will be coming out soon. See you guys then.